Hello and welcome again. I'm Catherine Young, and this is our channel, Our Courage to Heal podcast. Before we begin, let me just say this. I'm not a professional healer and I cannot diagnose. I'm just another person who has been wounded but guided to receive healing. And now I'm here to share my story with you so that hopefully you too can find your courage to heal and stay on the healing journey. Now, let's begin. Thank you for joining me. The last episode, I spoke about my mom and the gifts I gained from her decisions. Coincidentally, I was feeling strongly about this episode about my dad. I wonder if I haven't understood his intention, whether I would have distanced myself over time, because I was feeling so unjust and tired of trying to rescue him from his decision to stay in a bad situation. We do that sometimes, don't we? All so tired from trying to change someone's perspective, thinking it's the best for them. In this chapter, I learned to lean in more, to listen to my inner guidance, and observe more without judgments, and find the real truths behind my dad's persistence and resistance to what I would deem as better life. Book 2, Courage to Heal, The Healing, Chapter 13, I Wonder Who My Father Really Is. I reached out to hold his hand. He stiffened up before turning to look at me. Then his gentle smile greeted me once again, and he let me hold his hands. Although his mannerism softened, his hands and arms still felt stiff. We continued to walk, and I could feel the years labored on him. Many years down the road, he experienced knee pain. He started by sharing his pain and massaging it often. Then he started limping, still determined to walk, even though it was too painful. In the end, he shared that he wasn't in the mood to go out. A decade after he first felt the pain, he surrendered and went for a kneecap replacement surgery after much struggle. Even moments before the surgery, he still questioned his decision to go for the operation, especially after knowing the hospital fees. Months after the operation, he was enjoying life and going out often. He happily told me he's fine again. I reminded him he took 10 years to finally go for the operation. Next time, he should let me know his ailments earlier and consider the doctor's advice. He was too happy to hear my words. About 9 months after he regained his mobility freedom, he fell in his bedroom, broke his hip on the same side he had his kneecap replacement surgery. He underwent a partial hip replacement surgery and stayed about 3 months in a hospital. He continued to stay home for the next 6 months unless he had a doctor's appointment. But my dad used to be an explorer. At 67, when he first visited me in Sydney, he would take a bus out often with Mum and explore wherever the bus will bring him. He would then come home in high spirits and recount his adventure and share all the foods he brought home from his day trip. But like a frail bird, I saw Dad slowly closing the door to his self-built cage and hide inside after this fall. I called him from Sydney. His eyes were always in a daze, and he hardly met my gaze. I lost my dad in spirit. I tried hard to call him back, but he felt distant. And slowly, my mom developed a mild cognitive impairment condition. She had gone into the cage with him. Physically voluntary, but mentally and emotionally longing to be out again. She had to hold on to him. Tried as I might, Nothing seemed to work. He preferred to stay home. So I decided to go home for 2 months with one single mission: to bring him out of the house to have fun again. But this journey was harder than I thought, because by this time I have also left this narcissistic sister, and she had changed her target to my parents. On top of his frail health and added weight from lack of activities, he had shouldered on more burden from her frequent attacks. And I realized this trip I wasn't just going to bring him out. I had to feel all that he was going through in order to slowly bring him to the door of the cage he had built himself. And this is the first time I was about to meet another side of Dad. Do we really know our parents? I think we do. I do. But perhaps from my lens and my perspectives at that point in my life. As my life progresses and I experience more seasons of life, and of course depending on my mom's narratives, I will then see more or different sides of my dad. We stayed together for decades. We bicker around and have some fun loving times together. He was there for all the key milestones in my life. He took care of my baby when I first became a mom. We laughed heartily and he listened to all my joys and complaints. But really, do I really know him? Do I know the deep emotions and the reasons behind the passionate and strong front he always had on? My father is my hero, my role model in so many aspects of my life. He was a rich man who gave money freely to his friends. Then overnight, his business venture tanked. We moved from a large apartment with rooms that could fit 5 beds to public housing with living room the size of our old bedroom. All along, he brought me along like it's an adventure because he continued to be the man he was to us. Still as fun-loving, funny, but maybe just time poor. After every hard work, he would turn, look at me, and feeling satisfied with himself, he declared, "It's done." From being in the house often to being out more and coming home needing a shower. He had left his posh living to being an odd job worker looking for ways to feed his 4 children. But other than that occasional chain smoking when he was stressed, there were hardly any signs that he was going through a hardship. That resilience and grit was amazing. As I grow older and have children of my own, venting my anger at them sometimes, I'm constantly in awe at how he kept his feelings at bay to give us a loving home despite his changed circumstances, his drastic changed circumstances. I grew up, moved to Sydney. He turned 67. He came to Australia because I have migrated over. He brought a budget and he spent it freely like he would when he was a rich man. He spent it all on food on us whenever we are out and about. And one day, sometime in the trip, he said, "Well, let's not go out much." And I knew he had spent most of his dime. That was the love language of my dad and my dad's only life mission, to care for his wife and children with whatever little he has. He did not know anything about self-love and self-care. The only time he stopped to be cared for was when he was sick, in pain, or needed a surgery. The only time when he would spend our money was when he knew there was no other choice. This exact trait led him to suffer that 10 years of knee pain before he surrendered to a kneecap replacement surgery. In recent years, after this narcissistic sister found a willing, innocent, and selfless pair of target in my parents, in a span of a little over a year, I heard countless episodes of attacks on them. I confirmed my suspicion of her behavior and was more determined to leave her. I was also hoping that my parents could see it and leave her. But I waited. It did not come. When I pointed out her toxic traits, my dad defended her. His choice was clear. He would choose to suffer. I was angry. I felt misunderstood. I felt unjust. I wonder why he didn't trust me. All I wanted was to protect him from further attacks. On one occasion, she threatened to leave my parents if they did not fire the house helper who defied her orders once. Even though my parents enjoyed the helper's service greatly, they gave in and let the helper leave eventually, without a helper to support them for weeks. But shortly after the verdict was out, this sister decided to cut all living allowances to Dad because he let this maid stay 2 weeks longer than agreed. The lengthy toxic messages and phone calls that reduced my mom to tears were not enough to satisfy her. Her disregard for Dad was not enough. She had to do more to feed her ego. My dad continued to tolerate her not once, twice, thrice, but every time, even when she gave him the cold abuse. He would ask Mom to check on her. Mom insisted not, and he said, just check on her. My mother-in-law heard of it and made comments about my dad's destitution as a 78-year-old man now. I felt anger and defensive, and I thought money was it. I went in to fill the gap. I gave solutions to bring him out of poverty. I suggested leaving her. And I gave more and more money over time. I thought money is the root of all evil. I tried, and I encouraged my dad to protect himself. I pointed out the cold abuse and abusive, lengthy attacks that his daughter has been sending. But his stand was to become the target. Let my mom be the pampered one, and he would just continue to stay by his daughter's side. This daughter would call, demand a good dinner to be served, come to the house, throw a cold greeting to Dad, and ignored him through her stay, while excessively showering Mom with attention. He was reduced to emotional pain as he quickly ate his meal. His only hearty meal after the many frugal meals of bean curd and canned peanuts with porridge he thought he could mostly afford with his new financial status. He wanted to save the best meals with fish and meat for this abusive daughter. His frail 78-year-old frame retreated back to his prayer altar after he had his fill, seeking refuge and strength from his faith. She forced her presence onto him and made him experience the cold abuse repeatedly. After she left, he slumbered onto his chair at the table again. He needed a seat. His legs couldn't stand longer. He needed a rest from his heavy mood. He picked up his cigarettes and puffed his huge relief that the abuser had left. When I questioned him the next day, he said nothing of this pain. He said he was all right. He plainly narrated that she came to eat and he did his things. He coughed violently before he spoke. Clearly, he was choked with emotions and he could not relieve himself. When I tried to lean in to hug him, he flinched more than usual before softening for the hug. I felt a hedgehog moment in him. He was under attack, yet he still decided to tolerate her. Slowly, I felt that Dad's silence was his handicap. He had no words. He wasn't taught to speak for himself. He was only taught to protect, shelter, and provide for his family. He was a baby born post-war, when his parents were struggling to meet only Maslow's first level of needs, food and shelter. They were emotionally unavailable. Survival was the only concern. When he was growing up, he worked hard to earn a living for his younger siblings to attend school, meeting Maslow's second level of needs: resources, employment, and security. And none of these taught him anything about his needs. He did not know how to connect within nor articulate his needs. Most of his generation of providers have no such experiences. They were labeled as rough and uneducated. They usually moved on strongly time and again to focus on his priority to protect his family. Even a dime spent on themselves is a dime too much. His emotions were carved strongly on his face. He could feel pain and hurt in his heart, but he could not explain why to himself. It just felt too painful to bear this time. He swallowed his pride time and again. No matter how much money I poured into the equation, his stand continued. He would not stand up for himself. He would save more for rainy days and continue to give this abusive daughter the best dinner and tolerate her. I tried to bring him with me to leave her abuse. He waved his hands and said he did not want to, and he was fine each time. The latest cold abuse was so harsh, he didn't even reply me. But he continued to stay on, only taking 4 days off, giving her excuse that they were occupied. And those excuses were given by me. He didn't even know how to get up for a breather when she came. I could not wrap my head around it. I did not understand it. It was beyond me. I decided to step away and give myself moments to recuperate from trying to save him. And slowly, as I spent my days with him, feeling his pain, I realized there's no anger or hatred in him. He didn't feel the injustice that I was feeling for him. I then realized that I was actually witnessing love, an unconditional love that only a selfless parent could give. One that's without pride and ego, one that's without self. He, my dad, was holding on to his daughter. Every time this abusive daughter asked my mom to come out, though unwilling, he would force himself to go along, to go and see how she was doing. Because by now, he was aware that this daughter was mostly alone. She lived alone and had maybe no true friends. He pitied her and wanted to keep her at his side so he could continue to provide her a home to visit whenever she decided to come. All these strikes just affirmed his doubts about her situation, and the more he wanted to stay close to watch out for her. He did not know he was hurt. The day I asked Dad if he was feeling sorry that this daughter turned out this way, he nodded and said yes. He wasn't angry, just sorry that she had to live her life like this. He couldn't fathom why she became like that. I told Dad because I had left her and she needed a new target. That's why he's seeing this for the first time. He shook his head, sighed, and asked me why she became like that again. Then he repeated without asking me. He said he was fine. Love had so many levels. We have the original attraction, the superficial happy times, deeper love to go through the ups and downs, protective love, possessive love, and then this, selfless, unconditional love. I was blown away. The day when she struck said a hurtful piece and left, Dad was focusing on planning his move to call her once the helper leave. Mom was so upset with her rudeness, she said no. But Dad was so worried for his daughter. He wanted to check on her to make sure she was okay. Angry, but okay. He wanted to make the first move to welcome her back home. But even until today, when he suddenly slipped into destitution, He never once rejected her dinner demands and kept showing up to make sure she was okay before retreating to his safe prayer altar to heal. And so I finally understood those times when he harshly rejected my decisions or help, he was fiercely defending me. He had his reservations that he could not articulate, but he had to stand by us. He had to protect his family, all of us, till the end of time. Dear one, you may or may not have a cordial relationship with your parents or the elders. They may love to nag, brag, scold, or even seem like always rejecting us. But I invite you to look deeper beneath those layers. Sometimes you can almost find gold. They are not what we think, uneducated and loud. They actually have a mission. These post-war babies, they are selfless and so loving. Their heart holds a space so vast for us, you cannot possibly anger them. The louder their neck and voice, the stronger their protective net for you. If you know one of them, you have been blessed this lifetime. Even times when we don't quite understand or find hard to accept, stay still and remember moments of the past to feel the intentions. Let the stillness of the mind and the inner peace guide you to the truth. Go beneath the layers. Trust. If they hadn't hurt you before, and I meant only the great loving parents out there, they aren't going to. We are lucky, blessed, and truly loved. Learning this chapter in my life opened so many doors to great experiences. I learned to decode the unspoken language and connect with the emotionally handicapped elderly and soften their heart walls along the way. I started feeling more comfortable around the elderly and smile at the defense next. And strangely, they also opened up more and I began to hear more of the stories, their heroic younger days. They love reminiscing about the past, how they strive, survive, and the things they do, some naughty, very naughty in their younger days. The fun they had and all the adventures from setting up their family, things they do for the children, and later, their love stories if I'm lucky. They were like us. They love a good adventure. They have dreams and they love giving to their family. Though they're emotionally handicapped, there's always one thing they always have: love. And they always to fight fiercely for their loved ones. They are not uneducated and rough. They are just educated to love and give and take less. When we learn different languages, cultures, and experiences as we may travel and explore more with our paper qualifications in education, they only learn this one love language: to protect and give. Dear one, the next time you join in a heated argument with dad or mom, perhaps pause and give love as well. They are using their love language. Why not give our love language as well? As for me, now that I know he had decided to stay, I've changed my focus too. I have decided not to comment much on her abusive behaviors. Instead, I work on letting Dad be heard and understood, and I focus on giving him joy. And I actually cheer him. I cheer him on his quest to be there for his daughter, and I focus on giving more joy in the process. This year, I have bought a portable wheelchair, and I'm going to travel back to Singapore to bring them on holidays sometimes. Of course, I have my little plan to make my dad say yes. I'm going to return his explorer spirit to him. Yes, I will focus not on his suffering, but rather on the joy and escapism I can give him. By bringing the best version of myself and joy, we can bring hope, love, and much comfort to our lovely parents. Would you like to experience their love language? They don't focus on the hate and anger. They are always focusing on the next solution to provide more for us, don't they? It's truly magical, the fortitude, the strength they have when it comes to love. Dear one, being open to receive is a way to gain empowerment, strength, and assistance. It will open doors to deeper relationships in your life and reaching both yours and your loved one's life deeply. Listen to your inner heart for the ultimate truth. Know when to accept and when to say no to a belief, fear, habit, person, or situation. Have you hugged your parents lately? I hope you try it. It's not easy if you haven't tried before, or it has been quite an explosive relationship before. But love always mends, heals, and grows. Some may take longer time to put down their defense, others could be short. Remember, love and hugs come in different ways and forms. To some, it can be physical, to some it's words, while others it's an act of service. Either way, I'll be rooting for your quest to love back. I'll be rooting for you. And now for the good news. Love always changes. 2 weeks after going back to Singapore, my dad is finally coming out with us more often than before. We're meeting him first by going to his place to fetch him, and 2 weeks later, he'd take his own bus and meet us instead. Love always heals. Remember, love and hugs come in different forms. You have to feel it.